Hello and welcome to our Infor Builder Hour on how to build models in Birst. For those of you who are new to Builder Hours, this is where we invite Infor technical experts to showcase implementation details of Infor technologies with our goal to better enable you to build and implement your own solutions. This is also an opportunity for open dialogue with you submitting questions through chat. Today's topic is how to build models in Birst, and our expert is Rena Silverberg. Data has a life cycle, with Infor Cloud Suites being where critical transactional data is captured at its inception. What Rena will walk us through is the mechanics of how we move transactional data into models that are optimized for analytics using Birst. Now, to confirm that you are familiar with the chat box, I would like to ask each of you to please enter in the chat box what you judge your experience level to be with building models in Birst. So 4 options might include none or new, or proficient or expert. And while you do that, we will introduce ourselves. My name is Greg Hamer, and I am Infor's Developer Engagement Strategist. And Rena, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Rena Silverberg. I'm in the same team with Craig, but my responsibility is our intelligence platform, which is Birst and Analytics, EPM, data warehouse, data lake, data fabric, all those exciting things. I'm a long-term data and analytics enthusiast, I guess is the way to put it. So I have about 20 plus years of experience from different kinds of analytics roles and technologies. So that's it from me.
Excellent. And it takes one to know one. I also am a data enthusiast. And so I think that both Rena's expertise as well as her enthusiasm is going to show through here. For some folks who might be joining by watching the recording after the live event, for you, we encourage you to ask questions using the new Birst Community Forum, which you can find by going to the Infor Developer portal at developer.infor.com, and then selecting Community from the menu there. These community forums are newly added on the developer portal, and I and the team that I'm on are very excited about the positive responses we've received from users since this new community has launched. And remember, the community is for everyone. So if you have not yet tried it out, please be sure to go to the developer portal and explore the options under the new community menu option. Now, back to our session today. Thank you very much to everyone who has posted in chat. And I'm seeing a lot of folks who are indicating that you are new. So Rena really has this session targeted to enable you to get jump started. And the idea here with Builder Hour is for you to engage with us and make this as interactive as possible. We believe a lot of really interesting content and tips can come from you, our live audience. So throughout the hour, please help us out by actively using the chat function. Don't be shy. Ask questions, share your tips, and help direct the conversation so you can get the most out of our time together. Please note that though Rena and I can read the chat, we cannot respond in the chat. However, we have other Infor experts who are in the chat providing quick responses. And as needed, they will escalate up questions for Rena or I to answer by voice.
And if I can interject there, I just want to give a shout out to Tiffany Canada, who is our chat person today. She's the product manager for Birst, and she's a little sick. So I'm hoping you can send some sympathy her way and make her feel better. Thank you, Tiffany, for doing this for us.
And also, a high confidence that we're going to have Tiffany in front of the camera in a month or two on a future Builder Hour. So please keep an eye out for the calendar on Builder Hours. You get to meet Tiffany and hear her voice. But before we go any further, because this is a live session and we are taking questions, I do need to state a disclaimer. With open questions, any number of topics may come up, including questions about the future of products, roadmaps, proposed dates, etc. So we just need to state clearly that we're not making any promises about those future topics in this episode. That said, what Rena has prepared focuses entirely on features available today. Now, before I hand this off to Rena, I want to provide an overview of a few key elements for you to look out for in the hour ahead. First, Birst is integrated with Infor Cloud Suites. So Birst is an important analytics tool for all Cloud Suite customers, whether manufacturing, distribution, service industries, or any verticals under these. Next, many of you may be analysts who use data models. For you, it will be good to understand how data models get optimized to support your analytic workloads. And for those of you who build models for your team, Rena will get into the nitty-gritty. Now, I mentioned that data has a life cycle, and generally it's inside your Cloud Suite that data originates. Once data is born in the Cloud Suite, it is then analyzed over and over again throughout its life cycle. Cloud Suites are optimized for transactional activity and balance for analytics wherever possible. However, there are numerous cases where being optimal for analytics, the data requires some remodeling from how the data originates inside your Cloud Suite. So one case that Rena will highlight is around enrichment, which brings together two or more data sources. So central to the why of our topic today is maximizing analytic performance by first optimizing how the data is organized and modeled. Overall, you will see Rena demonstrate hands-on 8 sequential steps in the modeling process. And a lot of that is going to be expanding out the last part where we define relationships. Up front, I want to thank Rena for putting as much into our 1 hour together as she has. Please keep in mind that what Rena covers just skims the surface of what is possible with Birst. Hopefully, what Rena will walk you through will give you ideas for you to implement in your own environment. So please do not hesitate to ask questions beyond what Rena is covering as well. So for people new to Birst, and several have indicated you are, Rena will call out fundamentals. So generally, Rena is targeting beginner to intermediate. However, there are some chestnuts for advanced Birst users too. That said, everyone, please do not hesitate to ask questions in chat where our experts can quickly address your questions. Also, since the subject is how to build models, much of what Rena covers has elements that are universal to data modeling. So this will build on any experience you already have in that area. And with that, Rena, I'll hand off to you.
Thank you, Greg. And I just want to emphasize what Greg said here is we are going through the basics. So I assume most of you are Cloud Suite Analytics customers, and the analytics models are very, very complex. But I believe you need the basics to understand how we build things in Birst, so that then you can apply that to the more complex area. And I need the slide. So we'll start with a couple of slides where we're going to be quick with these. So this is the first one, and we'll talk about the schema. It's the data we're going to be dealing with today. It is Southwind. So if you've done any work with data, you probably know this information. And it is about sales, about groceries, retailers. So that's what we're going to be dealing with. I'm going to leave out 2 tables, employees and categories, to save time. I have about 45 minutes to go through the whole process of creating a model in Birst and to show you that we actually did the work and it works. So this is what we're going to be dealing with today.
And Rena, if I may ask, on this diagram, I see a key icon inside of each of the table items. And the ending column name usually has ID. So am I correct that those columns are a unique identifier for the rows in those tables?
Yeah, so they're basically the primary key for that table. And you are correct there.
Excellent. And that's going to come in with the modeling that
later on when we get to that part. So this is the data we're dealing with, and I chose this so that if you want to follow this along after the actual session, you can do that. So from the schema, I'll go through quickly the steps that are involved in modeling a data model. So we'll start with the use case. And in this case, our end goal is a sales dashboard. That's what we're trying to achieve here. We need to define attributes and measures. And when we talk about attributes, we're talking about things like customers and products and warehouses. And measures are, of course, the numerical information, meaning quantities, sales, revenue, costs, things like that. So you define the use case, and then you define the information you need for your dashboard. We'll connect to data source and import data, obviously. We'll prepare the sources. So any calculations, transformations, cleaning up we need to do is step number 3. Step number 4, we create hierarchies. And these are the things that hold our attributes in the model. Then we assign the attributes into the hierarchies. We'll set measures. We'll set dates. And I'll talk about this in more detail when we get to that part. We'll set the grain. I'll talk about this also more when we get to the actual part. And lastly, we're going to be processing the model, or using publish as we call it in Birst. And with that, let me move on to my Birst. So this is a Birst standalone environment. It's not a Cloud Suite environment. And before I do anything, I just want to talk a little bit about the concept of space. So in Birst, we have spaces, and space is a container for everything to do with a use case, the one that we just defined in the previous slide. So a space contains a connection, the actual data, all the transformations, the preparing of the data, all the calculations, reports, visualizations, dashboards, security. All of that is contained within a space. And I'm going to start creating a space. We have 2 types. We have enterprise and we have professional. Professional is, I'm going to say, more towards business users. So if you're not a data expert, a professional space is good. Birst does quite a lot of the work for you. It is simple to upload, for example, a file and then start working with the information. I use always an enterprise space. I'm going to say 98% of the time, so not always, but I use an enterprise space. It has more flexibility, and the main reason why I use it is hierarchies. In an enterprise space, we create hierarchies. In a professional space, we don't. So you can't do dimensional calculations on a professional space. Professional space for me is mostly for checking out data. I have a new data set and I just want to make sure if there's any value to it. So I upload it into a professional space, check out if there's anything useful, and then move on to an enterprise space. So we're going to create an enterprise space here. And I'm going to call it Southwind 01. And you can see I already have Southwind 02. So while I'm going to go through each step of the process, I'm not going to go through every step. We do a bit of a cooking show, and I'm going to jump into another part of the model in a bit. So the first things first is you need to connect to a data source. So we'll click on connect. And what you see here in this window is dependent on your license type. If you have Cloud Suite Analytics standard license, you are not allowed to connect to third-party data sources. So a lot of this is hidden from you. If you are a Cloud Suite Analytics user, you will find the connection to the data lake and to the tables under shared connections here. But we're not obviously going to be using that because we have our own data. So I'm going to use a file for the first part, and I'll use the quick upload through the browser. The browser has the limit of 20 megabytes. So if you have larger files, you need to use the Birst agent for it. We have videos on our YouTube playlist, how to install the Birst Cloud Agent, how to connect to files, how to connect to an on-premise database. And in the description for the webinar, there is a link to the YouTube playlist, so you can find detailed instructions there. But I'm gonna use files. So let's go and do that. So we get to Southwind, and that's what I'm gonna use. There's 2 ways of dealing with the data we're uploading. So it is a file, and all the tabs are shown as tables. If I do something very simple here, like I don't want categories table at all, like I said, I can do this. I can also get rid of a column if I want, and then hop on to prepare, which means that then Birst will do the import and get you to the next stage. I want to do some filtering, so I can't use the quick upload preview, I need to go to the actual connect page. So we can see the tables or the tabs here. The categories is unchecked because I unchecked it previously. I also said that we're not going to look at employees, so I'll uncheck that. And then I'm going to go into product to do a little filtering. We have a column called discontinued, and it shows us products that are discontinued. We don't want those, so I'm going to do a filter here. So I'm going to say not equals and 1. So 1 is discontinued. If it's not 1, it's 0, and then it's a valid product. Now, I only have zeros here in discontinued, so it means that I don't really do anything with this column. So I'm going to uncheck that, so I don't have the column in my data. So I'm done. It gives me a window where I can kind of take a look at the information or check that I've done the right thing. So when I click on products, I can see the filter in here. And if I scroll down all the way to the right, we can also see that the discontinued column is not in use. We're not bringing it in.
I mean, if I may, so what you're doing here, it seems like a relatively small, simple thing, but keep in mind that you can expand on this. So Rena is going to be able to exclude certain information by using the filtering. She's leaving out anything that was discontinued, and therefore there is a transformation. So this is really a foundational idea that you can expand on. Am I on the right track, Rena?
Yeah, and of course you can re-import and bring in the stuff that you didn't use, and you can exclude things later on too if you want. But yeah, you can also do queries in here if you want. But again, for the sake of time and simplicity, we're just going to do simple things here. So I'm going to click on import files. And what we're doing right now is we're taking the information from the file and we're uploading it into the Birst cloud, into the Birst staging area so that we can start working with the data. Once that's finished, we'll go into another source and bring in additional information.
And so, the top right-hand corner showed that it was successful.
Yes, you can see the warnings and messages on the top right-hand corner. You're right there. Thanks, Greg. So I'm going to go into Salesforce to bring in information for the account. And oops, let's not do that. Give me just a second. I'll do quickly. Tell Dashlane not to help me out.
And while Rena is doing that, so this is where that second set of data is being brought in. And again, Rena stripped this down to be a kind of a simple solution. So it's straightforward and easy to follow along with, but most important, we can do it in under an hour. So she's now connecting to a live data source. We have the data that's already been brought in from a file. And again, that data could have been brought in from a cloud suite, but to keep it simple, Rena has come up with a very wise sequence here. And now we're connecting to a live Salesforce database that has related information that she is going to bring in to enrich what's already loaded from the file. Yeah.
So Salesforce connection name is what you do. Obviously, you need to log in, but because it's a cloud source, there's no drivers needed or anything of the sort. A prefix is what we will do here. So SFDC. Prefix is very, very useful, and I recommend to start using it from the get-go, especially when you have more than one source. There's two benefits. One, you can immediately see where the source is from because it's in the name. And second, if you have the tables that are named the same in more than one source, so then there's going to be no confusion, no overriding, no nothing of the sort. So use prefixes. So I'm going to save that connection information. It'll take us to the huge number of tables we have in Salesforce. Account is where I want my information from. And we're going to take the account ID, which is the primary key. And then we go a little bit to the right and we take the account, not the account site, no, the account type. So 2 items. I click done. It'll give me a warning that I didn't do any filtering, which is a good thing to point out, but I'm good with the amount of data we have coming in. I can do the preview again and see that I've actually done the right thing. So yes, I have the account ID, I have the account type, and I'm going to import the data.
And
So
Rina,
then,
you
yeah,
had said earlier that we can redo. So it is fairly common to do things iteratively, if only to get more up-to-date information. So
yeah, of course. Yeah, so it is quite easy to add things in Birst into the sources if you want to. You can also keep them the same if you want to. And there's, of course, the scheduling capabilities so that you don't need to do this manually. Every time you run something, you can schedule it in two different places. We have what we call orchestration, which has workflow, so you can link or I'm going to call it link different steps of your process and how you want to run that. But we got the information that our SFDC data is in, and we're going to move on to the next stage, which is prepare. So we're in prepare, where obviously we're going to be preparing our data, and there are quite a few things to say on this window. So first of all, you can see all the different items we brought in are grayed out. That is by design and on purpose. So whatever we do in the enterprise space needs to be thought out. So nothing is by mistake or you didn't realize you did something. Everything is on purpose. And we need to enable the data sources. And when I enable them, I'm actually going to enable them in the hide format. So we're not going to be using them to build our model. So the first thing is that you never, ever, ever build your model on top of the raw data sources. Never. Always, always, always create scripted sources from your raw data. The reason is because there's going to be a change at some point. You need to add data. There's a structural change in your source or whatever. And if you don't have the scripted source as the base of your data, then it means that you're going to have to change your full model to point to a different data source. If you have the scripted source, even if you've done no changes to it, then you can add scripting. You can add several steps of scripting before that. So it makes your life much, much easier. I am lazy at times when I create demos or POCs, and almost every time I regret not doing the scripted source, because then I realize that I needed it anyway, and then I have to kind of go back and forth and fix things. So always create a scripted source.
So what you're sharing here, Rina, is best practice from your hard-learned experiences out in the field.
Yeah. So always create a scripted source. Now, the second
also, as Rina goes forward here, there will be a different icon on the raw sources versus the scripted sources. So as Rina builds this out, there will be two tables that have nearly the same name, but you'll be able to tell which is the scripted source.
Yeah, that is true. Now, what we're doing here in the prepare stage is prepare our data for the model. And my recommendation is to create one table per hierarchy. It is possible technically to fill out a hierarchy from multiple tables, but I'm a simple person and I want to keep things simple. So I rather do the work here in prepare than when I'm actually creating the model. So for example, here we will have the account and the customers to fill out the customer hierarchy, and I'm going to combine them here. So recommendation, one table, one prepared, one scripted table per hierarchy. That's my my tip. That's what makes life easy for me, and that's what we're going to be doing. So we'll start with customers, and first I need to go and hide the source, which makes it active, but it's not going to be visible in the next step. And actually, before I do that, one more thing here is the data, and this basically applies only to text files, CSV files, Excel files. When we talk about databases and cloud applications, the data types have been set up correctly and the driver brings them through correctly. When it's text sources, Birst will interpret the data and it doesn't always interpret it right. So a good example is customer ID here. So customer ID is the primary key for the customer table that we've brought in here. And it's going to be linking into the customer ID in a fact table in the next step. So I have to make sure that they are exactly the same name, exactly the same data type, and exactly the same width. So if we look at customer ID, it is Varkar and it's 18. So that's good. We'll go then to orders. I'm going to hide the source and then go and take a look at this guy here. So I scroll down or up actually, customer ID, Varkar, and width is 18. So we're good to go there. We're okay. And this is something you should do in the beginning when you deal with text files, Excel files, CSV files. This will give you trouble later on if you haven't checked. So when your things don't match, when you try to create a report, come back here and make sure that your data types are exactly the same. Now, another thing when it comes to text files, like I said, Birst will interpret the text information, and sometimes it's not what you want. So if we take the employee ID here, it is integer. I don't like it. I want it to be Varkar. We're going to add the width to 2. So maybe one day we have 10 employees instead of just 9. And then I'm going to lock the data type. So when I next run this same file, import the data into Birst, Birst would want to put it into a integer, but it can't because I locked it. So this will stay as Varkar with 2 until the end of time or until I change it. And once I've done that, I click apply. Changing the data type is the only thing you do when it comes to raw sources. It's the only transformation you do in a raw source is the data type changes, nothing else. Everything else is done in the scripted source. Okay, so then let's move on to a scripted source. So I'm going to create a new one from customers. I'll give it a name, customers. And we'll come back to this in detail in a bit. I'm just going to save it and we'll go back to the previous screen. I didn't execute it, so I don't have data here. So if this happens to you, you just click on the execute button and it will run a query to the data and you'll see examples of it. Now we're going to add the account information. So I need to do the same thing, the hide source. An easiest way to get information from a different source is to create a scripted source. The name doesn't matter because we're going to cancel out of here. So I'm going to copy, we'll cancel, and then we'll go into the customer scripted source. And in the top part is the select statement. It's the information coming into this table. So this is where I want to add the Salesforce information. So we're going to create a left outer join. So the text file I brought in is the master. Whatever information is in there, I want to keep. And then if we have additional information in the Salesforce, we'll use it. If not, we'll still have the original information. So I'm going to paste the information I just copied. And then I define the join. Now, in the previous step, I mentioned that you need to make sure that your columns are named exactly the same. That doesn't apply here where I'm manually creating the join. So I'm telling Birst what the join is. In the next step, it's using those keys and IDs that I define. So that's good. We'll go into the next step, which is the script. So whatever calculations, transformations I do here. I'm going to do 2 things. We're going to first add customer type, which is the column from Salesforce. So I'm going to copy that over here. And then I do the world's most simple scripting part. So I'll call it alphabetical. So we're going to take the first letter of the customer name so that we can group them and find them easier. Now that's a substring function. We take the company name. We'll start from the first letter and we take 1 character, and that's that. Now, if you're like me and you don't remember these syntaxes and these functions and whatnot, we have a fix for that. So docs.infor.com is where our product documentation is. If you scroll down just a little bit, you can see all products. We go B for Birst, and I'll click on that. The default you should go into is the Birst online help. Sometimes there's a little bit more information in the classic help. So if you can't find it in the online, just come back and try the classic help, it might have a bit more information there. But in this case, online help is good. In Birst, we use Birst query language, and you can see here is the info Birst BQL reference guide, but I'm going to actually search for the function we're using. So substring, BQL quick reference. And if we scroll down, we see a yellow highlight for the item I looked for. So you have the function, you have a bit of a description of what it does, and you can see the starting position is 0. You have a syntax for the function and then an example of what it actually does. So this is a good place if you need help with your functions. I can't personally remember half of these, so it's a good place for me to come to.
So what we have here is a low code solution, but again, always be acquainted with the documentation, because if you're not using it every day, it's just not top of mind. So thank you, Rena, for making sure we're aware that that's important.
Yeah, and while you talk about or mentioned low code, especially in professional space, that is true, but we do have full ETL capability. So you can actually do wonderful things with the Birst scripting. I mean, amazing stuff, but that's enough for my Birst buffing here. So
yeah, we couldn't fit all that in 1 hour.
No, we couldn't. But I'm going to validate and I'll get an error. I'll just let you know that I will get an error. And that's because I didn't create the output columns. So we started with the inflowing data. So what we're getting in, then we do our transformations and scripting, and then we have the output columns. And the new columns I created are not here. So they don't have any place for the data. Now we'll do these. And again, copy paste this is a really good way to go about it. So we'll do the customer type. It is a varchar, and 20 should be enough if I remember correctly. And then we add the other one, which is alphabetical. Again, varchar 1, because we're taking 1 letter, and we'll save that. I could do the validate, but I'm going to jump to the top to do execute, which also validates it. And it is the first step in checking that your script is doing what you want it to do. So we can see we got 91 input rows, 91 output rows. So we're not losing any data here, and we're not expecting to. We have an outer join, which means that all the data is coming through, and our scripting was something simple as we did here. Just take the first letter of a name. It shouldn't reduce our result set. So all good. We'll save and we'll come back to this.
Now, if we could just pause for 1 moment. So if you look at customers on the top left, you'll notice it has that different icon. It looks like a checkerboard, whereas underneath we have the one for the raw data. I think Rena is now going to move from model 01, and she has some of this built out, pre-built in model 02. And you'll see a lot more scripted tables as soon as 02 opens up there.
Yeah, so we're going to go to prepare, and I've done the preparing for all of the data. There's one quick point here. So sometimes when you're going back and forth and between the different sources and doing a lot of transformations, a lot of scripting, sometimes this screen doesn't keep up with you. So if that happens, you can always re-execute the script. So run it a second time and then check that your data is okay. Like I said, sometimes it doesn't keep up with you. So re-executing is a good way to check that your data is correct. And what I said in the beginning or a little earlier about 1 source per hierarchy, that's what we've done. So we have customers, we have products, and then we have orders and order details, which are going to be in the same hierarchy. But yeah, so 1 table per hierarchy or hierarchy level is what I personally recommend. So we're going to move on to the next step, which is relate. And what we do here now is tell Birst how to build the model. And Birst will actually build a database, star schema or snowflake, depending on how you define your model. In this case, it's going to be a bit of a wonky star, I guess. But yeah, that's what we tell Birst, how to create the database. At the same time, we define the logical model that is going to be visible for the people who actually built the report. So we do these two things at the same time. The first step in that is creating hierarchies. And I've done one already to save time. That's my motto for today. But the next one is going to be customers. So I create the hierarchy, and at the same time, I create the lowest level in that hierarchy. So customers, and this is going to be one level hierarchy, which is perfectly fine, but customer hierarchy and customer level. And the main thing about a hierarchy is the level key. So like Greg said in the beginning, we're talking about a unique identifier for a row of data in that source. Primary keys is usually the way to go, but if you don't have that, then you need to come up with something else. But in this case, it is easy. It is the customer ID. We're going to create another one, which is then for orders. And like I said, this is going to be a couple of levels. So I'll create the hierarchy. This is the lowest level, but obviously order details is going to be lower. So I'm going to rename it. And Birst is very eager to tell me level key cannot be empty. I know. So we're going to be doing that next. For order details, it is a 2-column key. So if I go to order details, you can see there is no order line ID or order line number or anything of the sort. So we need to do a combination. It's order ID, and then the second item is product ID. So these two things create the key. There is no like technical limit on how many columns you can have in a key, but if it's more than 2, for performance sake, I would create a combination key in the previous step when you script things out. Just create your key in there, and then it's faster and simpler to use here. And I know Craig has the like official name for my combination key, but
A composite, I think.
yeah, composite key. But yeah, so I talk about combination key. But yeah, so that's the order details level. Now we're gonna add another level, and it is on top of this. So when you create the hierarchy, you create the hierarchy and the lowest level. It is always the lowest level. You can't add a child level to that. It is the lowest level. You can add a parent, and that's what we're going to be doing. So in here, we'll do orders. I'm going to check that. And then I need to tell what's the unique identifier, and it is obviously order ID. So I've now set my hierarchies. They're ready. So we have 3. We're going to click on done, and we'll move on to the next step. So now we've told Birst that here are the tables we have, and this message here, it's okay. When I'm creating this for the first time, obviously I have changes I haven't published because I haven't done or run the model yet. So that is all okay. So what we've now told Birst is that here are the tables we're going to be creating, the attribute tables, kind of. And now I need to tell Birst what to put in those attribute tables. So we're going to go to customers first and model columns. And again, I've done this for the product so that we don't need to go through that. So in Birst, when we talk about those primary keys or level keys or unique identifiers, we treat them slightly differently to other attributes. So customer ID was it for the customer source, and I'm going to mark it as both an attribute and a measure. The reason for this is, I'll get to that warning in a bit. The reason for this is that now I can easily do count and count distinct in a report for this when it's marked as an attribute and a measure. When I have an attribute, you can see Birst will let me know that I need to have a hierarchy to put it into, obviously. So we'll put it into customers. I'm going to filter this out so I can choose measures, attributes, both or nothing. So all of the things that have not been assigned a role in the model are now in this list, and everything else is fine. So I'm going to click on the top level, but I don't need the state code in my data. So I'll exclude that. And if an item is not marked as attribute, measure, or date, then it's nothing. Then it's not going to be part of your model. So state code is going to be out. So I'll click on done, because I'm not seeing my save button on the bottom. I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried here. Let's see if it does work. No, it doesn't. All right, so I'm gonna have to do this. Sorry, people. Maybe I can see it with this one. I'll try. Okay, so we'll go back to model columns. We'll do all of it except this guy here and this guy here. And okay, my save is still on the bottom of the screen and I can't scroll. So one more time, sorry about this.
Yeah, we asked Rena to kind of change her screen to boost the visibility for everybody. And now we've got ourselves in this pickle. Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah, we okay, I need to go to 100%. I hope you can still see this. All right, so model columns, again, we'll filter with nothing, and we'll take all of it. We'll remove the state code. But for some reason, my save button is still missing. This is a weird situation. So let's do this one more time. I'm gonna re-log in, I guess, into this one. Yeah, so sorry about that. In general, not an issue, but I think it kind of didn't like my new
Screen layout. Yep. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. We'll just quickly.
Didn't mean to throw you a curveball. Yikes.
And yeah, we did check that everything looks okay, but we didn't check each step in the process. So okay. And these are usually issues you have with remote sessions because they distort your screen in some way. So let's hope that we are. Okay, am I in the wrong? Yeah, I'm in the wrong. Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's try again. But you can see how easy it is to come back and continue what you were doing. So model columns again will filter with things that are not assigned, and it was state code. And again, my save button is somewhere else. This is really weird. Let's try another one. So now I'm in orders, and we'll order details. We'll deal with customer in a bit and hope that my save button comes back. But order ID, so I'm in order details. Order ID is both because it's a key item and it belongs in the order hierarchy. Product ID is both and it belongs to the product hierarchy. And then we have measures. So if I filter this out now with measures, we have discount, quantity, and unit price. They are not part of a hierarchy. So we tell them in the graining part where they belong to. So we're good with that. Then we'll go to orders and we'll see how this goes. So we have the model columns. I'll go to customer ID. It is both again, and it belongs to the customer's hierarchy. We have the order ID later on. Again, it is both because it's a key, a field, a level key, or level key. It belongs in the orders. Then we have employee ID that I'm going to mark as an attribute. It belongs in the orders because there's no place else for it to go. Then we have freight, which is a measure, so we're okay with that. And then we have dates. So I'm going to do those one by one so that we can move forward with this. My missing save button. So dates are special in Birst. We have an inbuilt date or time dimension. It starts from the 1st of January and goes all the way until the end of December, of course. If you have fiscal years, you can do custom time in Birst, but the inbuilt thing is a standard year. And what it means is that you don't need to build it yourself. What you need to do is map your dates, the dates in your data, into the Birst time dimension. And it's actually quite simple. So when I'm here doing the column properties, I have a date. The column type by default is none when it's a date. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But here, this tag, analyzed by date, means that it is now marked as a date that is mapped to the burst time dimension. And what it means is that I can now do my measures by date. If you think about quantity, which is a very common measure, I can now look at it by order date. I can look at it by delivery date. I can look at it by requested delivery date. So I will have one measure, and then I choose the date it's going to be applied to, or date that's going to be applied to it. I'll show it to you in the report building part, so you're gonna see how that works. But that's what we mean by analyze by date. Now, your different sources might have different levels of date. In our case, it is day, so that's perfectly fine. And I said that by default, dates are column type none. You can mark them both as an attribute and a date if you want. As an attribute, it is just a piece of data. There's no drilling up and down on the time dimension when it's just an attribute. You could create a billing report and add a due date to that. So then it would be just a piece of data in your report. There's no functionality within it. If you mark a date as a measure, then you can do minimum and maximum dates with that quite easily. So because my save button is missing, I need to do this one by one. No, it was analyzed by date. And then we're going to do it also for the ship date, and still none, and analyzed by date. So
I'm not sure if it would help, but changing the column type, and then maybe the save button might come then. But you have a solution, so we'll just go forward with that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take the company name and mark it as an attribute, because we don't need awfully much of this, and then we'll do the customer type. I think that's gonna be enough for attributes for us. So right. I have no idea where my save button has gone, but yeah. So now we've told Birst what we want in our hierarchies, and for customers it is 3 items, because I don't want to go through the rest of them. So 3 items in that. If I go to products, we can see all of them are part of the product hierarchy. I have a few measures in there. So I've told Birst what to put into those tables, and at the same time told Birst what to put into the folders when we create reports. Now there's one more step here, and we're gonna start with the customer again. Click done here, and source properties. So this is now the grain that we're doing. And the grain, to put it simply, is to tell the measures in this source what are the hierarchies, the dimensions, the attributes I can look at that measure by, basically. When we talk about attribute dimensions, like we have here, well, dimension is an attribute dimension, but yeah, you'll get what I mean. So when we talk about attributes, they are only grain to themselves. So I'm in the customer table, and the only grain is to customers. Oh, save button has appeared. Yay. So that's exactly. I'm just going to quickly show you products, which I did before. It grains only to products. And the feature here is when I go to a source and the grain has been set, you can see it. I don't need to go and look for it. I don't need to open the customers and see if it's a check mark there. There's not. It's only in products. So then we'll move on to the more complex ones, orders and order details. And these are now a hierarchy. We have to remember that. So on the order header level, where we are now, we have the information about customers. So this is grained to customers. We also, of course, have the link to orders on the header level. So on the parent level, that's where we are. I kind of could go to products, but it would screw our results. So because one order has several products, if I have, for example, 5 products in an order, and I would now map it to that, then my results on the order header level would be multiplied by 5. And we have that freight cost in there. So that would not be correct if I added product here. So I'm good with this guy. Then we'll go to order details, which is the lower level of the order hierarchy. So first of all, there is the information about orders on the order detail level. So the lowest level, lowest grain. There's the information about products. And now because I'm the child level to orders, I can also map this into customers. the order header information is not gonna skew my data on this level. It'll add information. So we have customer on each level of this table. So we're basically doing a lookout to the previous or the upper level, the parent level here. And we're gonna click on save. So we prepared our sources. We've told Birst what tables to create, what items to put into those tables. And let me just quickly show you, no, not that one. We're gonna run the model here next. So create the actual model, the publish. And publish groups. So if you have sources that are updated at different times, you have something that's updated every hour, something that's updated once a month, doesn't make any sense to run them at the same time. So we're going to do a publish. And what's happening now is Birst takes that information in the staging area. It takes all the preparations we did. We did very little, but we did little. So we'll get those. And then it takes the information here we've given it to create the model and the logical model for the person who actually creates the reports. And I'm just gonna quickly check the timing. Okay.
Yeah, we're good. Hey, by the way, Rena, there was a question, and as this is happening, we are uploading the data into Birst. And the way BMAC or BMC asked the question is, he said, wait a second, I thought we were looking at reporting from data within Infor. Why are we uploading data into Birst? And I think I gave my spin on it earlier. What is your response to?
Why are we uploading data into Birst? In this case, we're uploading it into Birst because I want to build a model. So even in the Cloud Suite cases, your data flows from an ERP into the data lake, and from data lake it is uploaded into Birst. That's how it works with the Cloud Suite analytics models. So we bring it into the Birst staging area, we do the magic in Birst, and then you get your reporting packages or yeah, I guess package is a good way to talk about it. But that's where we are uploading the data into Birst, into the staging area.
By the way, Rena, you're doing such a great job. People already want to know when we're going to do the session on complex data and data lakes. So
yeah, that's then a different section. But in here we're done with this. So I'm gonna go into Visualizer. And I have a few things to quickly show you here. Let's see.
Rena has now successfully completed the modeling, and she wants to show it off through Visualizer.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to take customer ID first. So this is one of the IDs, the key items that we marked as measure and an attribute. And when I go into the properties of this thing, you can see I have count distinct and count in here as the aggregation. So I don't need to do function anywhere. I don't need to do calculation or anything. It is built into the model as the aggregation type for this measure. So I'm going to get rid of that. We'll go into quantity, which I used as an example. I'm going to take it twice, the same measure twice. And let's go into attributes. So we have time. And you can see the folders there that we created in the previous step, but time is built in, like I said. So all of these categories are there for you to use in standard time. So I'm going to take year and month. Quickly just make that simple. And then we go into the quantity properties. So aggregations for a numerical measure are more than just count and count distinct. So there's average, max, and min, and sum is the default. And what we're going to do here now is change the data type, or date type actually. Order date is the default. We'll keep that. There's the required date and the ship date that I also mapped into the time dimension. Load date is good for troubleshooting. What we're going to do here is change this one into ship date. And then I'm going to just quickly change the name so we can recognize them. And now on my report, I have the quantity by the date it was ordered and by the date it was shipped. So one measure, but two dates to use it by. And by default, Birst shows you 100 rows. So if you want to see more than that, you go and say all. And the last thing I want to do here, just to quickly prove that we did what we set out to do, is to get information from the attribute tables or the folders. So we have our quantity. Product is the next thing. So we'll take product name. We'll go back. We go into order details for the order ID. And now it's getting a little confusing. So let's go to a table. From there, we go into customers. And yes, we have some items in here. So I'm going to take company name and customer type, and then just quickly pretty it up a little bit by grouping the stuff together. So now we have a report where we have information from products, from orders, from order details, from customers, and from Salesforce. And it is all working the way it should work. And this is, like I said in the beginning, the idea here is to show you how the basics of Birst work. If you want to look into Birst more, we have education on Info4U, and there should be a link in the description to the Info4U curriculum learning paths about Birst. Foundation courses are really good to go with. And if you want to try those out, start with the admin foundation course. That's where you build the model, and then in the analyst course, you will use it to build your reports and dashboards. And before I give this back to Greg, just a quick reminder what we did. So we had the use case sales dashboard, and maybe we'll build that in the next builder hour. We connected to a data source, actually two. We imported data into the staging area. We prepared the sources, created hierarchies, assigned attributes, set the measures, set the dates, set the grain, and then processed the model. And with that, I want to thank you. I've seen there's a lot of conversation going around in the chat. So thank you for being active and interested in the topic. And back to Greg for some final words.
And Rina, most of the comment and the questions are asking for more. So you did a great job. And as I said, folks, we're given an hour for Builder Hour, and Rina really figured out how to get the most into that tiny, relatively tiny window. Data modeling is just a fascinating thing. And the way the data is physically stored can only be stored one way. And in transactional systems, they're absolutely optimized to make sure that when you buy a product, sell a product, ship a product, that information is recorded without fail. And sometimes that's not the optimal way to store the data for doing data retrieval, especially when it gets bigger. So that's why, another reason why some of the data gets copied. But Rina, a quick question. Early on, you were working with bringing in data from a file. And the question from a LinkedIn user was, does your modeler indicate the file size of the file and data that's being imported? So at what point do you get visibility into, because if it's very large, obviously it takes very long for that to come in.
I don't think it does. I'm going to have to be completely honest. I'm trying to remember the properties. When we go to a file, I'll check that because things have changed a little bit around the data imports, but I don't think it tells me the size of the file when I'm importing it. In general, bringing in files is quite quick. Yeah, so in general, I would say that's not a worry, but I'll check that and get back to you unless somebody else was able to respond to that.
No, but thank you. Again, a lot of working with data is iterative. And so over time, you become intimately familiar with your data. And you know exactly how long you get to go grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there are humongous data sources that can take a long time to import, but there is the incremental upload, meaning that you'll only bring in data that has changed since the last time. So that's a big help. And of course, you don't bring in all the data anyway, so you'll do some filtering when you bring it in after the initial upload.
Well, we are now at the top of the hour, so I want to thank everyone for attending and to extend special thanks to both Rina as our presenter and our Birst team members who are supporting the chat today. After we wrap up today, please keep an eye out for upcoming Builder Hours. We are working to showcase different experts in each of the upcoming months. And for you, our customers and partners, there also is ongoing new content on the developer portal and on our Infor YouTube channel. So please check both frequently. And as you have questions, be sure to try out the new Infor communities that, again, you can also find through the developer portal. So if you didn't have a question answered today, definitely post it on the communities and start giving them a try. Also, one last great option is to sign up for the monthly Infor developer newsletter that will highlight for you new products, features, tutorials, and events. So sign up for the newsletter to ensure you know about all of these first. And to sign up, again, you go to the developer portal, go to the home page, and at the very bottom, you will find the sign up there. So again, that's developer.infor.com. And from all the team here at Infor, we are always working to ensure that you know how to make what is possible happen. So thank you very much.